Hello, on my behalf. Before I start, I'm very happy to be here with you. I want to very, very cordially thank Rutgers University and personally Sadia for her invitation to be here. I think it's a very, very important issue to be raised across the ocean. I hope we can also find you can also find some links to what I would present to you and possibly some possibilities to get this cooperation a step forward. So I will go ahead and start with the presentation. Let me try to share screen. I hope that is okay. I'm not very good at these things, but I will try. I think that now you can all see my screen. So the idea today is to present to you the XM Out campaign, which is, let's say, the starting point of this presentation, but also across the XM Out campaign, to talk about the far-right violence issue in Greece in general, which is an issue linked to several factors like authoritarianism, austerity politics, and also the militarization of border management that we have been witnessing in Greece the past few years. I'll try to be as brief as possible. The issue is huge, but I'll try to be as brief as possible so that we can also have some room for discussion possibly afterwards. So the X them out campaign. This is the black map of Athens that we have created. Um, so what we have done is that throughout the years, we have tried to capture and visualize the several hate crime incidents that we have witnessed in Greece. Um, the idea was to render this phenomenon as visual as possible to the wider public. This is all linked, of course, to the Golden Dawn trial, the neo-Nazi party trial. We will talk about it later. So the goal of the campaign was to pinpoint and highlight the unseen criminality related to racist attacks in the public space. The momentum to which this effort is linked was the Golden Dawn trial, which has brought to light dozens of racist crimes, mostly against migrants and refugees. So we had a trial for 5 years, 5.5 years, prosecution of prosecutorial, let's say, procedure of 7 years. And although we have undergone this vast, let's say, process in Greece, the full extent of the criminal racist activity of Golden Dawn is not visible and adequately known to the public. So this was the starting point of the campaign. This assumption was the starting point of the campaign. We have tried to visualize just a small part of this topography of violence in order to contribute to acquainting to the general public with the crimes and to their eventual punishment, of course. So what we did was first, we documented some attacks. I will tell you all about the methodology of the documentation. And we placed the attacks on the map on the exact spot where the attacks took place. So you see on the one side, the map of Greece. Of course, most of the attacks are condensed in the big city of Athens and the city of Thessaloniki. Also, other attacks that are spread across the country. So we have placed this X in the exact spot on the map where the specific attack has taken place. On this exact spot, we have also placed let's say, the footprint of the violence, which are these stickers. I don't know if they're visible enough. Maybe they're here, they're more visible. These are big stickers with QR codes. These QR codes act as a barcode, so they can be scanned on anybody's mobile phone, and they are linked to the depiction of the specific attack. And then we put the so when somebody, let's say, crosses this road and they see this sticker, they can scan it, and once they scan it, they get on the web page that depicts this specific attack. So the idea was also to how to say, to make these attacks also the history of the neighborhoods, to show to the public that in this exact spot in your neighborhood, in the spot where you're passing by or you're waiting for the bus to come, in this specific spot, a very brutal racist attack has happened. This is the overall material of this process has been gathered in an edition that is this book, The X Them Out, The Black Map of Racist Violence Campaign, which is also titled An Idea That Became a campaign that became an exhibition that became a book. So we gathered all the artworks together and all the documents along with some accompanying text. And this book, so it's not just in terms of promotion, let's say, but it's for a very good cause. The proceeds from the sale of the book are donated in support of the civil action lawyers. So we thought that this was an opportunity also for us to contribute to this very, very huge fight that the lawyers are giving. I will take the opportunity to give you an overview of the timeline leading to the trial, because the Golden Dawn phenomenon, let's say, was not something, I mean, for many people that do not know the phenomenon, it might have started in 2010, but this is not the case. This is when it skyrocketed. So there are several political, social, and other factors that have led to the rising of Golden Dawn and to, of course, its criminal proceedings after. So it's a kind of a timeline of the far-right violence in Greece in general. Golden Dawn was present as, let's say, small paramilitary group since the 80s in Greece, mostly attacking leftists and some migrants and refugees, but not to the extent that has happened in the years to follow. But from 2007, 2008 and on, we see a mainstreaming of the far-right discourse in Greece that has enabled Golden Dawn's, let's say, establishment in the public sphere in Greece. In 2007, as you see in the timeline, the far-right party of Laos gets a 7.15% in the EU elections and a 3.80 in the national elections, which means that they managed to enter the parliament. The Laos is not the same as Golden Dawn in the sense that it's not a purely neo-Nazi formation. It's mostly a populist far-right party, but its rhetoric against migrants and refugees is very, very hostile, and all academics and scholars agree that it has kind of led the way, of act as a predecessor of this of the Golden Dawn appearance. At the same time, so in 2008, we see the intensification of the of Golden Dawn's attacks. So, for example, in 2008, we have a very brutal attack against the social space in Greece, against Atipnia. In 2009, throughout 2009, incidents of organized racist crime are multiplying and intensified. This is something that's being reported by NGOs and other activists on the ground. 2010 is a landmark because Golden itself manages to get one elected municipal councillor in the municipality of Athens. Actually, it's leader Michael. So it's a very marking point because it's the first time that this purely neo-Nazi formation manages to have some kind of institutional presence, first in the city council of Athens, and then the stories to follow. In 2011, the proceedings of the municipal council, the elected municipal councils, um, are inaugurated. Michael starts this inauguration with a Nazi salute, which shows actually the tone that Golden Dawn wanted to follow. At the same time, I'm sure you've all heard about the Greek financial crisis in Greece. So the crisis is like in the financial crisis and the recession are in full development. We have the first memorandum. The elected government is dissolved. There has to be a kind of, let's say, interim government. And in this interim government, Laos becomes a party of the government. Although its votes are not needed to, in the sense that the two parties that mainly from the coalition, Demokratia and PASOK, are more than enough to form the government. However, it kind of is seen as a consolidating factor of this participatory government, and at the same time, this leads the way for an even more mainstreaming of the far-right discourse. 2011 is also a very marking year in the sense of what's happening on the ground. So it is on May 2011, after the assassination of a Greek guy in the city of Athens, Manolis Kandaris. There is a huge pogrom against migrants and refugees for 3 days in the city center of Athens, with dozens of migrants and refugees wounded severely. And of course, members of Golden Dawn are leading the way in this organized hate crime. After which, of course, incidents of racist crime are like more and more frequent and more brutal. 2012, Golden Dawn manages to get elected in the Greek parliament, electing 18 MPs by gathering about 7% of the electoral voting, which is like huge. And the brutality on the streets is being intensified at the same time. 2011, we have a very characteristic attack against 5 Egyptian fishermen in their house. I'm mentioning this specific attack. It's not, of course, not the only, but it's also included in the central case file of Golden Dawn. That's why I'm mentioning it, distinctively. In 2013, things are getting worse and worse. On January 2013, Shahzad Lukman is murdered by 2 Golden Dawn members, who are eventually arrested and convicted. There is a kind of pushback, let's say, from civil society, in the sense that things are getting more and more out of hand. And activist organization, Democratic Citizens, of course, and other political parties are pressing for some kind of accountability. But it seems that this pressure is not enough until September 2013. On the night of the 17th to 18th September 2013, I'm sure a lot of you are already aware of this attack, of this incident. We have the assassination of Pavlos Fisas. Pavlos Fisas is a rapper. He was assassinated by Giorgos Epakias, the Golden Dawn member in Perama, and his murder is kind of this, this thing that where the state says enough is enough, we cannot have this anymore. So maybe because he's Greek also, and there's a different balance there, but in general, this is when the criminal prosecution of Golden Dawn starts to unfold. So, how are the attacks chosen? The 100 attacks that are being incorporated in the XML campaign. First, let's see. You can think of it as three circles. The inner circle contains the three attacks that correspond to the three individual cases included in the main Golden Dawn trial. So the first one, as you see it on your screen, is the murder of Pablos Fisas. The second one is the attack against the Egyptian fishermen, for which I have told you about before. And the third one is the attack against the labor unionists of the Communist Party, also in Panama. So the main structure of the trial is introduced by these three individual cases that constitute the basis of a fourth case, which is the criminal organization case, and which was actually the most difficult and the most important, in the sense that, I mean, of course, in sense of individual perpetrators, the murder of Pablo Fisas was arrested and would be convicted anyway. The fight here was to show that his actions were not his own actions, but they were part of an overall criminal organization that constituted the party. So these are the three individual cases that are in the inner circle of the campaign, let's say. On the first outer circle, that I say the medium circle, are the other cases that are included in some criminal case files and have afterwards been linked to the main trial. There are, throughout the years and throughout Golden Dawn operation, there have been several attempts by a lot of lawyers to bring the perpetrators to justice. So some individual attacks have been tried, have been brought to trial. There have been some positive developments there. So when the trial started, there was a huge effort by the lawyers, and not only by civil society organizations as well and other groups, to link this jurisprudence, let's say, these already tried incidents to the main one, in order to better consolidate the fourth charge, the criminal organization charge, which, as I told you about, is the most important one. So these are, for example, this is the one depicting the murder of Sarzad Lukman that I have told you about before in the timeline. So imagine, for example, just to do a parenthesis here, that you are strolling the streets of Athens and you pass by the specific place where Sarzad Lukman has been murdered. You can find a QR code there, and if you scan it, this is the web page that you are directed to. So it includes, let's say, a description of the attack along with an artwork that has been produced by comic artists that were asked to help the campaign. This is another attack against Synergio. So these are some examples of what the campaign looks like. Another parenthesis is the because it's also a communication action at the same time. So the one thing that we're very aware of was the methodology by which we could choose the attacks and depict them and place them on the map. The other thing that we had to deal with was the method of depiction, in the sense that there were no videos or photographs available, of course, because these are all crimes. This is a kind of hidden criminality. These are all crimes that happen at night, that the perpetrators remain mostly unseen. But even if they were, sometimes there are some pictures that are very brutal, but at the same time, we had to do a campaign, and in order to do a campaign, you need visual depiction. So you cannot do a campaign with just text. It's completely outdated. So what we came up with was this idea of handing the info over to artists, painters, and comic artists mostly, and they could depict the attack in their own way, which was, I mean, at first we didn't actually think very through, but from the distance of time now, I think it was a very good idea, in the sense that comic art is very powerful. It has different ways of depictions. In some cases, the artist depicted the perpetrators as, normal human beings. In other cases, they are depicted as kind of monstrous-like people. So every artist had his or her own gaze to the phenomenon. This was also something very interesting, artistically wise, in a sense. And so the third circle, the outer circle, is what we say the unreported cases that document the modus operandi of Golden Dawn hitting squads. So these are some of the depictions. One of the main issues that we had back then, I mean, back in the era where Golden Dawn was actually very present in the streets, and at the same time we tried to document these attacks, was the fact that most of the attacks were unreported. I mean, they stayed among the victims for several reasons, the most important of which was that migrants and refugees were mostly hit also because they were the easy targets. A lot of them didn't have legal documents with them, they were undocumented. So uh, even in the case that they managed to find the courage to go to police and report the case, most of the times they were the ones that ended up in a cell for lack of documentation. So this was one factor that, exclude them from legal action. They were also afraid of the police themselves. They have been victimized several times, or they were afraid of the hitting squads because they knew them in the neighborhood. So, in any case, the main issue that we had generally, not just for the campaign, was that most of the attacks remained underreported. A lot of things happened back then in order to mitigate this factor, the most important of which was the creation of the Racist Violence Recording Network, so a kind of coalition of NGOs under the auspices of the National Commission for Human Rights. So this was a kind of independent mechanism that documented racist crime incidents, and it was fundamental in order to show what we call the modus operandi. So that this organized racist group had a specific way of organization and of implementation of their actions, and we managed to gather credible testimonies for that, which was very important. So some of the attacks were also included in the X them out campaign. Also, apart from the 100 campaigns, the 100 artworks that were included, the 100 attacks that were depicted, at the end of the trial, the last month, and since this comic tool proved to be so powerful, we wanted to go a step further. So another challenge of this trial was the fact that media presence was very low for several reasons. For once, cameras were not allowed in the room, in the courtroom, so no cameras, no depiction in sense of photographs, and at the same time, very few reporting because it was also a very lengthy process, and in general, media proved not to be very interested in the process. So we tried also, we struggled to find a way to depict the atmosphere of what was happening there, and there we also used the help of comic artists. We brought people from Greece and abroad that depict the shed some light to the process. You see, these are some depictions. The one is from Portuguese comic artist Vasco Gargalo. The other one is from a US artist, Molly Krapapol. So we brought in artists to go witness the atmosphere that you get throughout the trial and depict it on a piece of paper. So these are also, these are also included in the trial. So this is, I try to do it very concisely. Of course, I'm here for any kind of thoughts and questions. This is just one video. I don't think the sound will be heard because I don't know the Zoom tool. I'm not really aware of how to do it, but this is just, even visually, it's quite powerful because it's from the day of the verdict. So this is the on the 7th of October, the image outside the court. People are gathered to hear the ruling, and somebody comes out saying that the ruling is that Golden is a criminal organization, is ruled to be a criminal organization, which is like a very important moment. This is the mother of Pavlos and his father after. It was a very, very powerful day. So, and now what? So is the thing over? No, it's not. It's not by far over. There are several factors. Okay, just to give you an overview of what has happened throughout these days, that we have also been waiting. Apart from the ruling in the Greek context, you first have the ruling whether somebody is innocent or guilty, and then there is a whole new process that starts about the sentencing. So in the phase of the sentencing, it was also a very big fight. It was not bad at all, although some, there has been some nagging that they didn't get the years of incarceration that one would expect as leaders of criminal organization, but at the same time, this is something that, we waited for, since they didn't have any physical presence in the attacks, most of them. But the most important thing to hold as a kind of gain is that, in a sense, their political career is over for a lot of the years to come, and the funding is over also because they go to jail. So I think that's the main gain that we take out of it. Out of the 68 accused, some were acquitted, mostly, secondary members. Of course, the physical perpetrators were all convicted to many years of prison. And the most importantly, all MPs that were accused, the leading, let's say, core of the neo-Nazi criminal organization, were convicted to 5 to 10 years of imprisonment. Of course, and this is the next slide, things are far from over. One is that, for example, 2 out of 13 of the leading members are still escaping justice. The one is the the deputy leader of Golden Dawn, who just escaped the police. They could not find him for some reason. The other is Lagos, who is an MEP, and the process of lifting immunity is still ongoing in the European Parliament, so things are quite slow. The others are already in prison, but at the same time, what should be noted is that the rise and skyrocketing of Golden Dawn has coincided with several factors, and the factors are still there. So of course it's not over. There's an ongoing economic crisis right now in the country. There has been for 10 years. We had started seeing some light. Now COVID is here, so we're again in economic recession. There is also a continuous lack of a consistent migration policy, or let's say a consistency in the militarization of border control. I'm sure you have all heard about it, what's happening in the Greek borders. What one should be aware about all these images from Moria, etc., that you have been seeing, is that what is being exercised in the Greek borders right now is not just a Greek policy, it's an EU policy. So it's the EU policy of militarization of border control that's being exercised by through the Greek government in the borders. And this is something that has specific consequences, one of which is the continuous scapegoating of migrants and refugees, which of course in its turn has a very bad effect on how far-right discourse is being structured in the country. There continues to be some kind of reluctance from the state to acknowledge the extent of the phenomenon. Of course, there have been steps. We have to acknowledge that. We're not in point zero of 2010, but at the same time, there are several gaps institutionally that have to be addressed. There's a systemic racism prevalent. These are things that the state has not yet addressed. At the same time, we have a very severe lack of accountability within the police, mainly, and the military forces, secondly. This is very important because one has to understand that in order to bring these 68 people to justice for like a phenomenon of dozens of attacks and criminal actions, there have been also dozens of other people enabling these attacks and these criminal actions that have never been brought to justice. I will just give one small anecdotal example. Um, in the attack against the Egyptian fishermen back in 2012 in Perama, the perpetrators were arrested. And when they were arrested, they were brought to the police station. And as you imagine, Greece, as in the US, I guess, from what I see in movies, there is this kind of process of suspect recognition. So they were put in a line in order for the victims to recognize them as the perpetrators of the attack against them. So once they were brought to the police directorate, they were allowed, against all protocol, as you imagine, to change their T-shirts, get rid of the T-shirts with the golden dawn insignia, and wear some new shirts that were white, in order to kind of render them not recognizable, maybe. So this was allowed by specific policemen who are still active in the police force. And there are several of such incidents. I'm just saying that as a one specific incident that has also been mentioned in trials, has been proved, but at the same time, no prosecution has opened against them, and they have not been expelled from the force or anything. They are still there, exercising this kind of police control. So this lack of accountability against such kind of action is something that is still there and is very, very worrying. And of course, we have the overall toxicity, storming of the far right agenda and this new identitarian movement that is growing throughout the Europe and throughout the US, and it's also growing in the country. So just to try to end to end this circle, um, things are far from over. All the Of course, in the Ex Demot campaign, we have also made the case of including violence coming from other organized racist groups like Cryptia, Combat 18, etc. So it was not just going on because we had an eye on the future as well. And we wanted, these are some of these attacks that are linked to other organized hate crime groups. So because we had an eye to the future to show that, we organized racism in Greece does not end because Golden Dawn will go to jail. And the mainstreaming of far-right discourse and agenda is more prevalent than ever. This is a video that I wanted to show you of Lesbos, but I don't think I would just send it over by email if somebody wanted to see it. It's a very interesting research about how the ongoing reception crisis on the Greek islands intertwines with the identitarian movement. As you see, these identitarians that have been coming from abroad in order to consolidate their networks of far-right discourse. These are only enabled because all the factors are there, and I will finish by giving you one just small examples of this continuity, let's say, of the phenomenon um, in the public sphere in Greece. Michalogiakos, the leader of Golden Dawn, started the party in 1980. In 1984, there was a small pause in his participation in the party and in the party activity in general, because Hendrik Epeneman was the youth of a post-junta, let's say, party that has been uh, it has been founded by the leader of junta from prison, who's then in prison. So Papadopoulos, the leader of junta, formed a far-right party. Its youth was led by Michalogiakos in 1984. He resigned in 1985 because, ironically, he found that Epen was not anti-Semitic enough for him. Anyway, makes sense in a way. Um, what I'm telling you this story about because it's very interesting who the successor was. So the successor in the party, in the youth leadership of the party, was Voridis. Voridis is now the Minister of Interior of the now ruling government. So, of course, one can say that what a politician does in 1985 did not, condescends all his ideas in 2021, 2020, which I understand in a sense, but at the same time, I believe that this kind of showcases the continuity of an element of extreme far right that is present in the country's also institutional um, framework, like forever, and with all the factors that have enabled the rise of Gondor to be there, uh, I think we are before a situation where all things are open, and we should be very vigilant when it comes to how this phenomenon will unfold in the future. So this is all. I hope I didn't take a lot of your time. If you have any comments or questions, my email is available here, and also I have put the link of the book because it's a very interesting book. It's bilingual. It's also in English. It's also a way to support the fight against the fight of the lawyers against this phenomena. So feel free to check it out and order it online. And I will stop now. And of course, I'm at your disposal for anything needed. Thank you so much. I will try to stop my shares now, my screen right now. And once more, I really want to thank Rutgers University for enabling me to be here. It's very, very important for these struggles to be heard abroad, and also personally to Sadia, who's a dear friend, and she always gives us like the floor to present our work. Thank you so much.